I think they do a really good job from a play design, creating opportunities in their pass game. And then there's that second element of the play that Caleb has always done such a phenomenal job of. He was certainly through his college career, it was the highlight reels that you saw, and he's continued to do it in the NFL. And so, we got to do an excellent job with pursuit, continue to rush the passer, match the coverage, and play the scramble drill for an extended period of time, because he's going to make some plays because of it. And so we got to do an excellent job. Just because you're close on the initial play in the pocket, you still got to keep pursuing him because he's going to extend it.
That is Saints coach Kellen Moore as the Saints get set to take on the Bears in Chicago on Sunday. New Orleans is off to a 1-5 start. That's its worst start since 1999 when the Saints started 1-7. It would be Mike Ditka's final season in New Orleans. Spencer Rattler was good last week. He continues to protect the football and be an efficient player. We just aren't seeing the explosive breakout performances that are helping New Orleans win football games, as we've talked a good bit. On the flip side of it, when you look at this game against the Bears, there's a few things that I think really stick out in particular. Number one, Chicago hired the coach that everybody wanted. They got Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from Detroit. And at the beginning of the season, they started 0-2, a close loss to the Vikings, 27-24, and then they got blown out on the road by the Lions, 52-21. And it was just pretty clear that Detroit went into that game with a bit of a vengeance and a vendetta with their old coach, Ben Johnson. And a lot of those players and coaches were tired of hearing about what they might or might not be because Ben Johnson had left. Well, this is one of those, and by the way, since then, they blasted Dallas 31-14. They beat the Raiders 25-24, and they escaped Washington after the Jay Daniels fumble this last week by an identical 25-24 score. And those are the types of games, I think, that it's very clear that Chicago is playing. I mentioned the loss week one to Minnesota was 27-24. So you're talking about a team that is pretty much identified through 5 games what they are. Outside of the game against Detroit, which was a total outlier, they've been a good, not great defensive team under defensive coordinator Dennis Allen, and an improving offensive team. And what's interesting about the offense coming along as well is while they are averaging 25 points a game, that's 10th in the NFL. So it very much in the top half. They are showing balance as well in the offense. They're 11th in passing offense, 18th in rushing offense at 110 yards a game. But the 110 yards a game comes a little bit of a caveat because their running back, DeAndre Swift, up until this point, has largely been a non-factor this season. And it's one of those where we're looking at the injury report, and DeAndre Swift is questionable in this football game. So it will be very much worth keeping an eye on whether or not DeAndre Swift is going to play in this football game, and if he does, just how effective he might be able to be for the Chicago Bears. The Saints have had some recent success. 2 years ago, they beat Tyson Bagent, who's a backup quarterback for the Bears, who started in New Orleans. It's one of those where I think, the Bears, the Saints had, after really struggling against Chicago early in the Peyton Breeze era, losing the NFC Championship game, going to Chicago in 2008 and losing those games, the Saints have won 8 in a row in this series. But this one feels a little different. You've got stability at head coach with Ben Johnson, who is ascending offensively. And remember where we started this conversation talking about Ben Johnson, being the Bears coach and going to Detroit, and there sort of being that vendetta, that chip on the shoulder. Listen, in the NFL, when you're talking about pros, where everybody's good and there is the true any given Sunday mantra, finding an extra gear, extra layer, extra fuel isn't always easy in the NFL. Like, in theory, the motivation should be the fact that you're a professional football player, but sometimes these opportunities present. And I do think this is one of those where Dennis Allen is motivated and will have his guys ready to play for him, because he is a demanding defensive coach and a very good defensive coach. Remember, as we've talked about Dennis Allen over the years. My gripe was never about Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator. Even Dennis Allen's Saints defenses were competitive. Maybe the best game Dennis Allen ever coached was the 9-0 win in Tampa, where they just dominated Tom Brady and the Bucs. So, I look at Dennis Allen as a really good defensive coach, a guy that's going to have this defense ready to go against a New Orleans offense that, despite all of the investment, the draft investment into that offensive line, has not played well. A quarterback in Spencer Rattler who has played very consistent football, efficient football, but not explosive football, and athletes on the offensive side that aren't helping Spencer Rattler elevate. I don't know that this is the situation on the road against a streaking, confident team when you're 1-5. I don't know that this is the situation where I'm necessarily anticipating New Orleans going on the road and getting a win. We've also seen New Orleans play 2 road games this year, at Seattle, at Buffalo, and they lost by double digits in both. Now, the Buffalo game is a little bit of an asterisk, but I think that's all because the Saints had an opportunity with a pass into the end zone in the fourth quarter, down 2 to take a lead, but they ended up losing by 12. You gave up 31 and lost by 12, and we're talking about that being a close game, which I think is sort of an illustration of the challenges this New Orleans Saints team has and really what our expectations are of this Saints team. So I do think this is a game where Chicago wins at home. I think it's a very comparable game to the ones the Bears have played already, a 20s type game, and I think it's a 25-20 Chicago win Sunday at Soldier Field. The Saints fall to 1-6, and you start to look and say, okay, well, where is the next win, and what is the possibility or probability of maybe seeing Tyler Shough? Again, I am not suggesting that the Saints need to hurry up and bench Spencer Rattler. I'm not saying that the struggles they've had are Spencer Rattler's fault entirely. But your open day, your bye doesn't come until week 11. So maybe it's a situation where you ride with Rattler against Chicago and then for the next 3 against Tampa, at the Rams, at the Panthers. And if you're sitting there at that point at 1-10, then maybe at that point, or 1-9, excuse me, then maybe at that point you go to Shough coming out of the bye and you let him start the remainder of the season. But if Spencer Rattler wants to keep this job, this is the spot where you feel like you got to turn it around. You got to be more competitive on the road, and you got to find a way to win a road football game because 3 of your next 4 are on the road. But you're at Chicago, you're home against Tampa, who's awesome right now, clearly the best team in the division. Then you're at the Rams, at the Panthers. So no rest for the weary. We'll see if the Saints can pull an upset, but they're an underdog, and I think they're rightfully an underdog, and I like the Bears to win this game 25-20 at Soldier Field on Sunday.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.